presentation.
Hey everyone, and happy Halloween. We are back. The boys at NoFlix Given are here to have one last entry into our spooky season contest. I'm Frank, joined by Connor, Peter, and Matt. We've got the whole team together for this one. This is the last of this series about how scared we can get Peter, basically.
Without over-scaring him.
Without over-scaring him, which is the pitch I initially said, and then Peter tried to moneyball it with a rubric, and we're going to see how that works out. But let me paint the picture here of where you are coming into it, dear viewer. Matt, Connor, and I each pick a movie. The goal of the movie is to see which one can scare Peter the most without scaring him too much, because he's notoriously a scaredy cat. Generally votes liberal. Not going to get into it, but so my pick was Creepshow. Connor's pick was Return of the Living Dead. We've done both those episodes. Please check them out. They were fantastic. I had a really good time recording both. And now we're at the third movie of the series, which is Matt's pick, which is 1987's The Gate, which we're about to get into. And I'm excited about because it's the only film of the series that I had never seen or really knew anything about. Like you, Matt, you mentioning Stephen Dorff was in it was news to me, honestly.
Yeah, his first, I think, role in film was
Deacon Frost.
Yeah.
Possibly, I thought about this while I was watching the movie, possibly my favorite movie character name of all time.
And just think, but 10 years later, after this movie was made,
I did the math. I did the math. It doesn't make sense how, I always thought of him as late 20s in that, but he has to be 17. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. We're going to get into The Gate, but since it's the last one of the series, I just want to check in on all of you because we're midway through spooky season. We're pretty into October. I've got some in my queue, but I want to see what else have you guys been watching for Halloween this season? Anything you want to bring to the table? Anything you've checked out that you maybe something you haven't seen before that you wanted to try, or even just a staple? Peter's got his finger up, not the one that you expect, but he seems to have two. He's got two picks. You can talk out loud.
Just one.
Peter, we are on a podcast.
Oh, that's what we're doing.
You did say viewers before, so
I was about to say I thought we had shifted to a visual medium. No. So my wife and I checked out the new Haunted Mansion movie.
Welcome, foolish mortals, to the Haunted Mansion.
Surprisingly unoffensive. It's not great, but if you are a scaredy cat, we generally are, it's not a bad way to kill 2 hours.
Seems fun enough.
Yeah, no, it was fun. It was a good time. Like I said, nothing to write home about. If you've ever been on the Haunted Mansion ride, it's a lot of fun. A lot of references. There are some people for whom that is their personality. They're just Haunted Mansion people.
Yes.
And I respect those people, but that is not the life we live. Although I do love. Funny enough, even though I'm a coward, the Haunted Mansion is one of my favorite rides at any Disney park. I love the Haunted Mansion because it's quiet and dark, and there are some spooks, but it's mostly just technical prowess that I can get behind.
Yeah.
So no, it's a good time.
Where does this rank compared to the classic Eddie Murphy vehicle from?
So I've never seen the Eddie Murphy one, but by all accounts, I feel like this is probably better.
Wait, there's a different one between the one that's out now?
This is a remake of the 2003 Haunted Mansion, which in turn is an adaptation of the Dark Ride.
The Eddie Murphy movie was from 2003?
I don't even know if this is a remake.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's classified technically. I mean, it's a separate adaptation of the same Dark Ride. But yes, in 2003 was the Eddie Murphy Haunted Mansion.
To be clear, the one that I'm talking about features Lakeith Stanfield, Danny DeVito, Owen Wilson.
The cast is loaded.
It's a crazy loaded cast. So no, it's a good time.
I had a different opinion, but probably just because I didn't have any of the ride references to go off of, and was just happy that everybody in that loaded cast at least was able to collect a paycheck.
So Matt, you saw it and did not like it.
No, but I am very cool on anything that the House of Mouse is putting out these days. So like, you know, I'm biased. Katie seemed to think it was also just fine and a perfectly fine way to spend 2 hours.
Okay. Okay.
Like I said,
Well, what do you got? What are you bringing to the table, Mr. Judgy? Judge Doom?
I showed Katie The Devil's Backbone, the 2001 Guillermo del Toro film.
¿Qué es un fantasma? Un evento terrible condenado a repetirse una y otra vez.
Which was, I think, my first Guillermo del Toro film, which still stands up today and is very much, you know, as a lot of ghost stories are, more sad than haunting.
And also most Guillermo del Toro movies.
Yes, also that too. And also the Spanish Civil War, because why not? And what was the other? And then I did show Katie Paranormal Activity. Because Katie is similarly afflicted to Peter, so I have to try to figure out how to expose her to my second favorite genre without completely turning her off to it.
No wonder you like Event Horizon.
She did not care for Paranormal Activity. She was rooting actively for the demon in that movie. And I do not believe I will be showing her any more found footage films. And then on my own the other night, I watched a movie from, I think this past year, called Come True.
Stage 1. The eyes close. A reduction in activity between wakefulness.
Little
idea.
Canadian low budget film that was interesting visually and a little uneven, but ultimately I kept thinking about it. So I think that's a good indicator for a halfway decent horror movie.
Recommending it?
I would recommend it to horror junkies. I would not necessarily recommend it to people who are not accustomed to or care for the tropes of the genre. Okay. You're welcome, Peter. I watched it, so you don't have to.
Connor, what do you got?
Because there's a new Exorcist movie out this year.
Believer.
Exorcist, yeah. I haven't seen that. It doesn't seem like a movie that's worth seeing, but I did revisit the first Exorcist. And boy, howdy, it's a good fucking movie.
Shocked.
Yeah, I know, right? And as I've gotten older and have been able to identify with Reagan's mom more, I have appreciated that much more as a family drama. Also, the further I get away from the Catholic Church, the more sort of dynamic that relationship becomes. What else have I done this year? Oh, I went on a bit of a misadventure that I didn't expect to go on. I don't know if you guys remember or if this was in your Blockbusters at the time, but there was a DVD at the Blockbuster in Reston, Virginia, where I grew up, labeled The Blair Witch Project.
Oh, I know exactly what this is.
Yeah. So I saw that and thought it was like, oh, what a fun, and thought at the time, back in the early 2000s, what a fun, sort of scary movie-esque parody of the idea of the found footage horror film. So I looked it up, watched the first 5 minutes of that. It's just softcore porn.
Back in town, legend has it that whenever you get near to where all this happened, and you get near the Blair Witch, you start getting sexually active and sexually just out of control. And then evil things start to happen.
Beware.
It only took you 5 minutes.
Well, because it opens with the shot from Blair Witch Project where it's like the shot like up the woman's nose. And she's apologizing for that.
The iconic sight. Yeah,
iconic shot. Imagine that about 6 to 8 inches lower, and tits are there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that happened.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea. That's funny.
It's like the time that my mom and dad accidentally saw Flesh Gordon instead of Flash Gordon.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it was like this memory from my youth popped up in my head. I was like, I wonder what that's all about. I couldn't rent it at the time, so I looked it up and watched the first 10 minutes or so. And if it was any better. Also, here's the thing: it's bad. It's not good. It's not entertaining at all. I don't necessarily have a problem with with that kind of film, but it was also like boring and dumb, so I stopped watching it.
Okay.
Yeah, that and as we discussed last week, I revisited Hellraiser and glad I didn't inflict it on Peter.
Also softcore, generally.
Yes.
I mean, it depends on what your kink is.
They got a little bit of everything, as Connor described it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's all over the map. I'll go through quick the ones we've kind of watched. I might have mentioned on here. I might have just told you guys I watched all the 3 Fear Street movies. Perfectly enjoyable. Nothing amazing, but they're fun. If you want you want that Stranger Things fix without the Stranger Things. Also watched a movie called Totally Killer. But basically, it's Back to the Future with a serial killer, and a kid goes back to the 80s. It's fun enough.
Oh,
it's a cute,
yeah.
very Fear Street-ish.
I think-
it's cute.
I think I saw the trailer for that.
Yeah, once it takes a while to get going. Once it does,
It's Sally
like
Draper, right? It's the girl from Mad Men.
No, it's yeah. It's
Yeah. That looks fun.
It was I know her as like Sabrina.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Same actress. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun enough. It's perfectly inoffensive. It's similar caliber as the Fear Street. And then Amanda and I did a double feature of the Meg 2, The Trench, and then we finished that and threw on, because she had never seen it, Jaws 4, The Revenge. So a movie she's currently writing about on her Substack, which we will link it at some point on our Instagram feed, but like, she sat through that and I sat through that, and it is it's fascinating. It's truly mind-blowing. Only like 2 people are eaten by sharks in that movie. Do you know that? There's only 2 people that get killed the whole movie.
I don't know anything about Jaws 4. I know about Jaws and the Jaws 2 we did on Fix-A-Flick, which
You should watch Jaws 4 because it's one of Michael Caine's movies.
right.
Well, but yes, that you have
yeah.
to also say that is where his famous quote comes from.
Someone said to me, I saw that Jaws 4. He said, it stinks. I said, I haven't seen it. I said, but I've seen the house it bought my mother, and it's marvelous.
Yes. And then the last thing I watched, which I'd seen before, which is a made-for-TV. It sounds horrible to say, but it's a made-for-TV remake of Rear Window in the 90s, starring Christopher Reeve while he's paraplegic.
You've been spying on me.
Dial 911. He knows you've been snooping around. He's coming after you. Get out of there quick.
It's way.
I mean, he did it.
After the accident, he made a Rear Window remake where he was, It's interesting. It's the fact that they made it is crazy. It's not good, but like
Honestly,
that
that's
exists.
fascinating.
Yeah.
It really is. It's more, the idea that it exists is more interesting than the movie, but he's doing the best he can with like the limited mobility. It's, he's, and I mean, I'll never not root for anything Christopher Reeve has ever done. So, yeah, truly fascinating.
Question for the group. Has any of us seen Hocus Pocus 2?
Look, another glorious morning. Makes me sick. Sister!
I have. It's fine. It's enjoyable.
Okay, because
Yeah.
it came up today in conversation, and I realized I'd never gotten around to seeing it. And Hocus Pocus is a very important film in sort of like the spooky season of the Lynch family. And
It doesn't ruin.
it's a millennial
It doesn't
thing.
ruin the first one.
Yeah,
in
but
any
it's also
capacity.
not as good
Okay.
as the first.
No,
Alright.
it's like a Disney Channel movie. Yeah, it's not the first one, but it's.
Right.
I
I
mean,
mean-
as soon as they show up, it's great.
Okay. Well, I'll keep that in mind.
Check it out. It's perfectly harmless. Sam Richardson is amazing in everything he does, so he gets to be in it too. So it's a good one. With that, though, time to go to the main event.
There is a passageway to the most evil place you can imagine. A gate behind which the demons wait to take back what was once theirs. And now, someone has opened the gate.
Matt, can you give us a little can you set the stage for what we're going to be talking about here?
Yeah, so the reason this movie is on the docket is because years and years ago, WPIX, which is one of the local New York stations that for me was probably my favorite because it would just play movies pretty much all of the time. And it was
Millennial CW.
Yeah, like it wasn't associated with ABC, NBC, any of the big three. And usually it was like a Saturday afternoon, and anytime during October, they would play horror movies that were not rated R, but horror movies that were nonetheless disturbing. So as a child, this movie was playing at some point, and I never caught the name of the film or ever watched it from start to finish as a kid, but I distinctly remember very vivid scenes from it that stayed burned into my psyche until I was an adult. And then maybe, 5-6 years ago, I saw the Red Letter Media guys cover a movie called The Gate. And then I started to see those very scenes that were etched into my memory. And at that point I was like, all right, I finally found out what the fuck this movie is. I need to go back and revisit it. So last year, about this time, I was hanging out with Connor and friends of the pod, Meg and Alex, and just decided, hey, let's watch The Gate. I've had 2 glasses of wine. Nothing can scare me. And proceeded to have, I think, a genuinely good time watching it, just as an academic experiment. But it still held moments and scenes in it that stuck with me. So when it came down to the kind of movies that we were talking about trying to present to Peter, this felt like it was in the arena of something that isn't just trying to get you for jump scares, but ultimately has some things that it shows you or talks about that stick in your brain.
Real quick, before we go forwards, does anyone remember what the logo for WPIX was back in the day?
Yeah, it was the Twin Towers.
It was the Twin Towers. That just popped in my head.
Yeah.
That's,
I just looked it up.
It's a New York, it's a thing. Like it still is, even though that it's independent too now.
It broadcast back then and broadcast to this day from the Empire State Building. It is New York as fuck.
Yeah, it's my favorite over-the-air TV station forever and ever.
That's how I talk about Masters of the Universe. The first place I saw that was my parents taped Masters of the Universe from WPIX in the 90s.
It was
had the commercials and everything.
And it was the only local station at the time that would start like Thanksgiving afternoon, would just immediately start playing March of the Toy Soldiers, March of the Wooden Soldiers.
Yeah.
And it would just start getting into the Christmas. So it was like that was how you knew it was Christmas. It would start playing that movie every year without fail. Long before Christmas Story became a thing that would play on any other major cable network.
I remember March of the Wooden Soldiers as like that was the sign that it was Christmas time. It was like after Thanksgiving.
So that was how I was introduced to The Gate, and I have decided to now introduce The Gate. I introduced it to Connor last year, and I have now introduced it to both Peter and Frank this year. As a quick synopsis, it's essentially about 2 children who inadvertently open up a hellscape hole that demons come out of, and hilarity ensues. So, Connor, you saw it last year. What did you think on second helping?
On second viewing, The Gate is really helped by watching this movie with an audience. Watching it by myself earlier today, gotta say it was a little boring.
The first half is very slow.
It
goes from 0 to 60 very quickly.
It's real slow, and also like because the characters are all precocious children, really annoying. Yeah, like I'm in that phase of life where like, you know, a 13-year-old telling or a 14-year-old telling a 12-year-old to go upstairs and change their Pampers, and the other one and the retort being you should go join the circus is just like okay, fine, whatever. Like that does nothing for me. This movie does become absolutely bonkers, batshit insane. In the latter, like, not even the second half. It's really like the latter, like, third or the latter quarter of the movie where it goes totally nuts. And when it starts going totally nuts, that's when I start getting on board, because I do enjoy a movie that is made by a filmmaker that does not seem to know to understand how films are made or how films are supposed to work. Like, you have seen movies, clearly you're making one now, but you have not learned the appropriate lessons from watching other movies.
This director cared nothing for structure.
No.
Yeah.
This movie is purely about vibes in a way that reminded me a lot back when we watched it last year, but also especially this time of Phantasm. I don't know who's. I know Peter's seen Phantasm.
Yes, I've seen that.
But it is very much about vibes in the same way that Phantasm is, and not so much about making sense.
Yeah.
And
I almost picked Phantasm for this series.
And
There's always next year.
I do respect it for that, for having a point of view and sticking to it, but I also did not necessarily find it like actively entertaining watching it this time. It's much more fun to watch with Matt in the room, I must say.
I can go into the history later, but yeah, the director, by the way, is Tibor Takács, who is a Hungarian-Canadian director. He directed this, he directed The Gate 2, and then he pretty much just went back to television directing, but he has a pretty prolific career directing television.
He's got one credit that I want to highlight, which is he made the Sabrina the Teenage Witch movie, which led to the TV series.
Right.
Yeah.
The one with Melissa Joan Hart.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah.
He also directed several episodes of The Crow Stairway to Heaven, which was an adaptation of the Crow movie for television series, which was, and arguably continues to be, one of my favorite television shows.
That Sabrina the Teenage Witch movie, by the way, featuring Melissa Joan Hart and Ryan Reynolds.
Holy shit.
Oh, with his fucking highlights. He's got
also,
like frosted tips.
Wasn't he also, he was in Are You Afraid of the Dark, I feel like, too.
Probably.
I mean, all that shit that was shot.
He was Canadian, like a Ryan Gosling kid star kind of.
I mean, all that shit that was shot in Canada in that era has the same, like, 6 people in it.
That's fair. Yeah, and also, this whole movie was shot in the Toronto suburbs. So, like, everything is just, all right, so on second helping, not so great, or at least did not hold up well without an audience. Frank, what did you think on first run?
I wanted to like it so bad, but I loved it. It was great. It was so fun. I had a good time. It was such a delight. And Matt, you saying like there are moments and images that like stuck with you, like you could fucking see that so clearly. And by far, I'll say this right out of the gate, like easily the scariest of the 3 movies we picked. Like not even fucking close as far as like certain moments here and there that like really freak you out with like the parents coming to the door or like there's just there's generally like once the like minions and shit show up that like it's silly, but like there are generally creepy vibes throughout it, and maybe it's just because I hadn't seen it before, but like it was unnerving a lot at the time. Stephen Dorff is amazing as a kid actor. He really does a good job with basically nothing. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. It reminded me a lot of like I watched last Halloween. I watched Fright Night, which I'd never seen before. Another movie that like is generally held in a lot of high regard, is like a cult classic, and it just didn't do a ton for me. It wasn't bad, but like it didn't do much for me, and it feels like I don't know, this should get talked about a little bit more. It's not like the most amazing thing, and it's not an every year Halloween movie, and it's not one that I'm going to watch every year, but like it's really good for what it is, and it has that feeling of like an underdog filmmaking crew who just like went above and beyond as far as the visual effects, which I'll save it for when we get into it, but like there's some unbelievably impressive visual effects in a movie that clearly does not have a very big budget.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
All right. Man of the hour, Peter. What were your thoughts on this film?
So it's kind of an amalgamation of both Frank and Connor, because it starts off kind of slow. There's a dream sequence. You're not sure if it's real or not, and that was kind of cool. And then there's like 30 minutes where it's just like get to it, get to the point. And then once it gets to the point, it does just go. And the swings that they take from a visual effects perspective are really, really fun. The way that the little demons look is super impressive.
So good
for what they were working with. I honestly, it's probably the single best effect that I've seen in any of the three movies is how they incorporated the little guys to basically just be anything that you wanted. A lot of like not Friday the 13th, a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street vibes, because everything is very much in this sort of half dream state. More than anything, though, this is the movie that most accurately describes what it's like to be afraid as a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
This so took me back to the things that I was afraid of when I was baby Stephen Dorff's age, which was kind of fun and did have like kind of a strong Are You Afraid of the Dark feel, but with a better budget, and like a slightly more sophisticated story, even though the story makes no fucking sense at all. But yeah, no, it was fun. I had a good time.
Having known you for as long as I have, I definitely was feeling that watching it this time. Just sort of like the especially like the nightmare vibes of it all feels like a thing that you'd be especially sensitive to, if my read is correct.
Yeah, the stuff with the parents was obviously like freaky. The thing that got me the most, the biggest scare that got me, was there's a moment where the kids are running from the demons, and they trap themselves in a closet, and they're trying to find their father's hunting rifle to like take care of the kids. And they open up the gun bag, and like a zombified version of his friend pops out. That was the one moment that got me.
Real quick, before we get too far, Peter fucked with all of us while he was watching this movie.
Oh, yeah, we should preface
and just for the audience who wasn't there, like, he texted us saying he tapped out and couldn't keep going, then texted us a time code, which we all separately were like, well, I got to see what got him. And we went to the number, and it was the scene where the kid is like levitated by the friends and just like falls into a light fixture on the wall, a sconce, and it was just like, it was like a Rick roll of Halloween. Yeah, it was fucking asshole. He's the finger guns.
Honestly, I bought it for longer than I think that two of you did, because that feels like a thing that would have happened to Peter at that age. Maybe not be levitated necessarily, but like break something and then, have to own up to it later.
No, I watched this the day before he did. I thought he would tap out, honestly.
Yeah?
I did think.
Really?
Yeah, I did kind of think if there was one movie that would do it, this would be the one. Not that this was a specific thing that happened, but like, I especially
This was not my scariest movie. Creepshow is my scariest movie. I thought Creepshow was scarier than this.
Huh. That is
we'll get to that.
That sounds like a winner.
We can get to the rubric whenever.
Fuck the rubric. Okay,
we gotta get to 25. Closest to 25 wins.
Well, it should be obvious to even the most dim-witted individual who holds an advanced degree in hyperbolic topology.
Well, like, but as far as like scary moment stuff, what I am curious, what, if any, moments brought you closest to actually earnestly like the edge?
I don't know that there was any strong moment that like I was not turning off this movie.
Okay.
the things that got me, in part because there were just enough ridiculous things to keep me going, and there was enough like continuity error that I was like, so her friends just like disappear from scene to scene. But
the meanest friends ever.
Yeah, they suck. The things that got me the most though were the dream sequences and were sort of the zombified like jump scares. I was more fascinated by the tiny demon creatures than anything else. I loved any time something like the telephone sequence when the telephone just kind of like sucks in on itself. Great moment. But I'm old enough now that I was just trying to think to myself, how did they do that? As opposed to, that really freaked me out. Oh, the corpse in the wall.
Oh yeah. So
let's talk about that.
Well, so speaking, like the two moments that stayed in my head before I understood what this movie was as a child was the dead construction worker in the wall and the zombified kid biting Stephen Dorff's hand.
Yes, and those are my
two moments.
Yeah.
Those I was terrified of ghosts or zombies ever since that point when I was 6, 7, coming out of the walls in the basement in our house because of this movie. Which
this movie doesn't get lumped in, but that pushing through the plaster.
Oh, I love that. I love those effects.
That's Stranger Things took that from this 100%. Like this is one of the movies that like obviously E.T. and Goonies and shit like that, but like that's in there too. This should be mentioned with the Duffer Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, well, Nightmare on Elm Street did it. I don't know if they did it first.
Oh, they did. You're right. They did do it with the face and stuff. That was no, that was before this. That was 84. I want to say
4 or 3. Yeah,
3 or 4.
And that was an image that became a very popular horror image for the next like 10 years.
Yeah,
that fucked with me horribly as a child. Yeah, fuck that. Fuck the guy that thought that image up. And the guy that made it happen. So fuck you, Wes Craven, and fuck you, whoever your special effects guy was, because I didn't sleep for a good portion of the 90s because of that particular image. Because, they did it in Nightmare on Elm Street where he's like, it's just, him.
Over the bed.
It's over the bed where he's like leaning through like the wall that is obviously like now like latex that they made like look like a wall. But then they did it in this movie. They did it in The Frighteners. They did it in...
Oh, fuck, The Frighteners.
Yeah,
would have been a good
movie.
pick.
They did it in a couple of other movies that like are not movies that I would have seen as a kid, but like the trailers for those movies would have been on TV as a kid.
And that's a trailer moment. That's 100% certified a trailer moment.
Absolutely a trailer moment, but it's also a moment that like when you're under, say, 10 or 12 and you're sort of drifting off to sleep and the shadows coming from the lights hitting your wall hit in a certain way, and you're sort of in twilight sleep and you have a vivid imagination.
That still happens to me now.
Yeah,
I don't know why we're classifying this as a childhood thing. One of the most primal things from this movie for me is just like anytime Stephen Dorff's in his bedroom and just like they're doing weird effects with projecting the shadows of the moths on his wall and just playing with light and movement and noise. Like that is a childhood bedroom.
Yeah.
And like it's that weird twilight, like you were talking about, just like not knowing where you are in wakefulness and just anything could be anything.
A thought that popped in my head watching this movie this time around was, boy howdy, were the writer and director of this film working through some shit from their childhood.
So,
yes.
Do you know? Do you know? Because I have.
No, I don't.
So it was written by Michael Nankin, who honestly he's won prizes and stuff, but I think he's been mostly a showrunner for things. None of his writing credits have run a lot of bells, but what I knew him from was he directed several really good episodes of the Battlestar Galactica reboot.
Okay.
Anyways, at this period of time, he was going through a bad divorce, and his impetus for writing the script was, let me just dredge up all the shit that scared me when I was a child and throw it into a script. And that became this movie.
Yeah. And those things became the things that scared me as a child.
Yeah. And the cycle continues.
Yeah. That was another thing that I started thinking about watching this movie again was how often the stars of horror movies from the 80s, or like the main characters of horror movies from the 80s, were kids. Because just in this series, we have several segments from Creepshow. There isn't any of that from Return of the Living Dead, but like you go back and you think like Fright Night.
Well, even Return of the Living Dead, they're teenagers. They're young.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't like the 70s had like Cassavetes and what's her name in
Rosemary's Baby.
The fucking
Rosemary's
Baby.
Yeah.
Like they're all like full-on adults. They're like The Omen, yeah,
exactly. Those movies are about like adults being scared of adult situations, but like the 80s, like it's like you have The Gate, you have certain segments from Creepshow, you have a lot of movies that are based off Stephen King material in general. You have The Lost Boys, which we've talked about in the past. You have a lot of movies that are
the list goes on.
Yeah, the list goes on and on. Where like the protagonist of the film is a child, and presumably these movies are rated R. They're not for a child audience.
So this one was rated PG-13.
You're kidding.
This is a PG-13 film.
Yeah, this is. I figured it would be PG-13. I didn't think this was R. There's not enough gore.
There's no hard gore, just in the fact that they don't actually bloody anything up literally. Despite the fact that a lot of the images are very disturbing, not least of which one of the first ones of Stephen Dorff caving his father's head in.
Yeah.
And just the goo that comes out.
That fucked with me pretty good this time around.
Yeah. I think that's the difference. Like it gets an R rating if it's just blood coming out of it, I feel like. But yeah, like moments like that are still horrendously frightening, but they play with it in a way that just, skirts that line and keeps it on the PG-13 side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I do remember being surprised when Stephen Dorff's best friend comes back as a rat zombie boy.
Yeah.
And bites him, and there's not more gore in that scene.
And she sticks him in the eye with a Barbie.
Yeah, she sure as shit does, doesn't she?
Yep.
Oh, that's why I wrote that. I wrote down Barbie doll murder, and I couldn't remember why.
Her job is ice pick.
Travis Beach. Also, I want to talk about two things. And the first one's going to be just like, I want to talk about those minions, which I don't know of a better term, the gremlins.
They're referred to as minions in the...
Minions, okay, cool. So what it seems like they did, and I haven't looked up shit. I haven't been on the IMDb, the Wikipedia. Yes, I know. But my understanding is those are grown men in costumes that they shot it at a different frame rate to make it look stop motion.
Yeah.
But it isn't. It's not stop motion. These are like people in costumes with blown up sets to make it seem like they're tiny.
They reverse Power Rangers them.
Yeah. They reverse Power Rangers. That's a perfect way to put it. Yeah. That's what it is, right?
The suits themselves were the guy who did the effects on this is Randy Cook, who is responsible for designing the Zool monsters in Ghostbusters.
Hell yeah!
So there's some once you notice that, you start to see some design similarities. But so he did that, and then the trick is almost all just like forced perspective. If you can see stills of this of like when the construction worker falls and turns into minions. There's the part of the set that is just. The two principal actors up front, and then however many feet behind is all of the guys running around in the minion suits, and they shoot at the right angle to make it look like it's all in one scene. So that's pretty much how they do all of it. And then there might be a handful of like puppetry things, but like a lot of it is just guys in suits with forced perspective.
Yeah. There's definitely some shots where it's a hand in the mouth where you don't see the rest of the body of the minion. There's a few of those. Yeah. But what
to make miniatures convincing, back when people used to shoot with miniatures, they would shoot at higher frame rates. So like instead of shooting at like 30 or like 24 frames a second, you would shoot at 12 frames a second to give the weight to like a boat on the water when it's just like a boat in like a little pool.
Isn't that the other way around?
You're correct. I fucked that up. I am a professional filmmaker.
The boo box.
You shoot it 48, and then when you play it back at 24, everything is all
slower. Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. So my guess is that when they're doing the forced perspective shit, when they're trying to make the man-sized men look like little guys, they would shoot it at 12 and play it back at 24, and they would be like sped up.
Because they're jittery, and that's the effect that you get. Because like it's the same thing as old timey crank cameras would do the same thing.
Hand crank when they were shooting like 18-ish frames per second. The other thing too is my favorite shot of the whole movie is when the minions are pulling at the dude's Stephen Dorff's friend's leg.
Terry, I think his name is.
I think his name's Terry.
Yeah.
And it's obvious that they're just shooting at like a 2-story tall length of denim with an armature under it, and it's just a gigantic leg they're pulling on, and I found that immensely charming.
But what it is too is like it's not just all of that. I think based on the movement of the creatures and the frame rate, it feels like the filmmakers were savvy enough, and maybe I'm giving them a lot of credit, but it feels like they were savvy enough to be like, okay, everyone's going to think these are stop motion. So if we make it look like stop motion, but not film it stop motion, something's going to be off, and it's going to be unnerving in that regard. Mm-hmm. Like it's specifically trying to elicit the stop motion jitteriness.
Yeah.
You can do this cleaner. You can do the math for the frame rate to make it a little smoother. Yeah. I don't think they wanted to do that. They wanted something where it's like, okay, I've seen a million movies with stop motion creatures running around. Something's wrong here in my brain. My brain knows this is not right. That's how I expect.
I think they were also overcorrecting for the shots that they knew were going to have to be optical effects to be like matte to be like the
it could be
the matte replacements, because those are the ones that look the weirdest because you're overlaying one path of film with another path of film. So they were making essentially the minions look like an optical effect in the shots where they're not optical effects. So they look consistent all the way through, which may be overthinking it a little bit, but it works. Yeah, it totally works.
I was going to say, I spend most of my time now watching it as an adult just being really intrigued by the magic trick of how they're pulling all of it off because of how just physical it all feels. Like the one of the shots that for whatever reason now I keep thinking about is when the older sister Al comes out, and like it's before we really start to see the minions, and then there's a scene where it's a shot where you see her legs and the minions, but the minions seem to be moving normally like guys in suits, but Al's still there and it doesn't look like it's compositing. I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? And it's got to be some weird forced perspective thing, but it's so seamless that it's just like, there's just minions right there, and that's that.
It's the 10-foot tall jean pant leg. I need to know who made that jean pant leg.
Connor's trying to buy pants. That's what this is.
I'm also quite big. That makes me think about, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead too far, the main demon.
Yeah.
Puppet, the Demon King.
Yes. The Demon King puppet. And how terrifying that is, B, beautiful it is, and C, how much they used stillness as a weapon with that fucking thing.
Good. Yeah, good description.
You know, because like it emerges no more than 3 times from
the gate,
the pit,
the gate,
whatever,
the gate.
And every time it comes up, it sort of like comes up, standing up straight, and then settles and stares at Stephen Dorff.
Yeah.
In a way that is
like something that's hunting.
Yeah. But it's menacing in a way that if it was like roaring or making a lot of noise or moving around a lot would not be menacing. And also it makes it feel like this is not an end of the world situation. This is an end of Stephen Dorff's character situation.
Yeah.
You know, like,
well, it also, that reaction too feels a lot. I took it as sort of like, it's from another like dimension, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Where it's just as confused at seeing Stephen Dorff as Stephen Dorff is of seeing this thing, where it's just like, it's unnerving because it's like, that is what a creature from like another plane of existence would do in that scenario, where it's like it's small, so I'm not scared.
A great old one is confronted with a 12-year-old Canadian.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's just sort of studying it in a way where it's like that's a good way of describing it, where it didn't just, they could have easily just had it roar and be big and smash the very 80s designed house, but like instead it was like, and it elicited a chance for like it to make sense why Stephen Dorff would continuously be able to get away from it and do stuff and you know, have agency when this thing has like a million arms and several tentacles. You know,
it does lead to my second to last favorite effect that I want to talk about, which is when the Demon King shows up, he kind of marks Stephen Dorff by putting an eye in the palm of his hand. And
oh fuck yeah!
Oh god!
Having not recently, having seen the most recent was it Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness? Mm-hmm. This does an eye effect better with like a millionth of the budget in 1987 than they did with that same sort of eye effect in the Doctor Strange movie that came out this year. So
I mean,
it's really good.
When he stabs that eye with that shard of. Is it window or
it's
is it
broken
mirror?
window glass, I think.
Yeah. Shard of glass. And I mean, listen, Stephen Dorff's performance in this movie is not fantastic. But the one thing he fucking...
I think it's great for his age. I think he's fucking crushing this.
Fair. Grading on a curve, it's pretty good. But like the one thing he really fucking lands is when he stabs the eye in his hand with the painted glass. You're like, oh, fuck, that hurt. That hurt me.
Yes.
You know?
It's a good effect.
And it's also like, you know, but compounding that is the idea that you like, you don't know if this is a dream or if it's an illusion or what it is, but, or like what the symbolism of having an eye in your palm from this particular demon is meant to signify. The fact that when he stabs it with a shard of glass, he's in a fuckload of pain. It ceases to matter what it means.
Yeah.
He's just in a lot of pain. And also there's a moment in his performance where he decides to swallow it. Where he's just like, this hurts, but it's what I got to do to survive this moment. Mm-hmm. So like all credit to him, baby Stephen Dorff.
If you want to take the hard road, be my guest, pal. But I promise you, by the time this is over, you're going to wish they never cut you from your mother's womb.
Oh, I was going to say, is the curve that we're grading him on perhaps a hill that he is ice skating up?
Matt, you know your audience so well.
Yeah, you should sign off. Just walk
I'm
away.
done. I'm done.
Goodbye.
Now.
Amazing.
Goodbye, everybody.
You've been great. Tip your waitress. Jesus Christ.
Speaking of Jesus Christ, there's one other effect I want to talk about, which is there's a moment where they try and seal up the gate, and they opened the gate by saying some words that appeared on sort of a magic scratch pad, and turns out it was like ancient whatever that apparently a metal band had completely listed in the only album that they ever made.
I want this album, by the way.
Time before the earth, before the sun, and before the light of the stars, when all was darkness and chaos. The old gods, the forgotten gods, ruled the darkness.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
But as a result, they're trying to close the gate by saying random Bible passages.
Yep.
And eventually they just throw the Bible into the gate and it explodes. And I just have in my notes, it just says exploding Bible in all caps. And after that, there's like another 25 minutes of movie.
Yeah.
As a kid that grew up Catholic, all of the satanic panic stuff of this movie, which there's quite a bit of, landed particularly hard, and also all like the Bible reading stuff, which is like that. I don't know if that would help me or not, but
well, and like it's kind of the reaction to it too, of like nobody knows what to read of it, and then it's just fuck it.
Yes,
guys, we're pretty far into this episode. I cannot believe we're not talking about. I thought this was like the first thing we were going to talk about, the scariest thing in regard to this. I thought this was going to be like what got Peter, and no one's bringing it up, which is the older sister's friend's hair.
Oh,
there's something about Mary.
Yep.
You are correct.
What is that?
Being somebody who is follically challenged, I would freak out about somebody's hair like that.
The meanest older sister friend in any movie, probably. She doesn't get a comeuppance, right? She just lives.
Everybody lives, yeah.
disappear.
I lose track.
They go away with those boys at one point.
Oh yeah.
Even
they
the dog
get sent
lives,
away.
which is the best part of the movie, is when you find out that the
Right.
dog. Yes.
Oh man,
We have not talked about how much dog corpse business there is in this movie.
As someone who has literally had to carry his dog corpse around exactly like that, I found all of it hilarious.
I didn't want to bring that up directly, but I'm glad you picked that ball up and started running with it.
And not knowing what to really do with it too is the other thing of just like, and you kind of have the same reaction of just like, all right, here I am.
Well, especially like that one girl's boyfriend driving the dog corpse around town, trying to find a place to put it.
That's like a 5-minute segment.
We've all wanted to get laid so bad.
True.
The shit he puts up with.
We've all been there. We've all had a corpse we've got to get rid of.
He's like, listen, I bury this dog
Gotta
and then I
get from
bury
A to
my
B.
bone. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. And then the dog
Jesus.
fucking ends up back in the bed later on, like when shit starts really getting
Well, and that's the
serious.
thing. Like the number of times that the dog corpse reappears after the dog corpse seems to have been dealt with.
We
They
have
got
to
their
talk
money's
about
worth out
how
of it.
we have to talk about how the dog dies though, because this is the moment where I was like, what the fuck is going on? So Terry, who has a terrible home life, spends the night at baby Stephen Dorff's house. I don't really care to know his name because he is just baby Stephen Dorff. Every time I saw him on the screen. So he has a dream where he sees his dead mother like waiting for him downstairs, and he goes and he wakes up from the dream like with the dead dog. So he presumably kills the dog. And Stephen Dorff the next morning, they're like chilling outside, and he's like,
Yeah, he was really old.
Yeah.
He was 97. They don't live much beyond that. Well, you want to come over later and mess around? Sure.
it's like, dude, your friend more than likely killed your dog.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, yeah, you just want to like hang out later?
They kind of hand wave it away in that the dog is old.
Yeah, the dog is
97.
He's 97 in dog years. Divide that by 7. I don't do math.
It's not, well, I thought about that. It's not divisible by 7 or 5, whatever your dog math is. That does not.
Maybe
not
he
work.
is using the logarithmic equation that people start to use now, but he's a very early adopter if that's the case. Also,
Right.
we have to remember that we have to convert for Canadian years.
That is true.
In Canadian dog years, that dog is almost 14 years old.
At least, yeah.
Well,
So,
when you take inflation into account.
Right. Yeah.
But yes, they establish at least that like the gate is opened before all this weirdness starts and the dog dies. So like you can at least reset the people back, despite the fact that the house is wrecked.
So in the Wikipedia page, it implies that the boyfriend putting the dog corpse in the gate, which it
was a sacrifice.
It bears repeating. The gate, the titular gate, is a hole in the backyard. Him putting the dog corpse in the hole is the thing that allows the Lovecraftian monstrosity to start making its way through.
Yeah, it's the blood sacrifice.
Connor, we've all wanted to get laid. We've all been there in the backyard hole for the Cthulhu Lovecraftian monsters. We've all
of your girlfriend's friend's house.
Yeah.
Which of us can say that we have not?
Yeah. I mean, when I was 17, presented with that option, absolutely.
Yeah, of course. I'm 34. I would still do that.
I'm 37. I'd do that right now.
But that was, Matt, that was my last note, was like crazy movie to not have the parents arrive at the end to see the damage. You know,
God, yeah.
Yeah.
Like what a weird movie to not do. Like the house is fucking destroyed.
Yeah.
Truly one of the most like damaged houses in any 80s
And
movie.
the last time you see the parents, it's the dream parents, and the dad gets his face clawed out. And then the last time that you hear the parents is the dream father talking through the phone and then setting it on fire.
Yeah.
So that's the last we hear or really see of them.
You don't even
So
get like
weird.
the grandpa moment from Lost Boys where he's like,
No.
You know what I can't stand about Canada? All the goddamn demons.
I like the fact that there are really only those adults in the whole movie, though.
Well, and a thing that I noticed this time around watching it was how much Stephen Dorff's character wanted to call his parents in like the first like half of the movie was like, we have to call mom and dad. They are the ones that are going to solve this, no matter what the consequences are for us. This is beyond that. I just want to talk to mom and dad, and we never see them again.
Which follows kid logic so cleanly. Like that is quintessential kid logic.
Yeah.
This movie is very kid logic.
Can I say, I think this is a better movie if you never see the parents. Just cut around that and just have it be like, it's not weird that they're not there. They just write them off, and then just have it be that sort of like Peanuts with adults.
It's
kind of off screen.
I think they work as they are for the first half of the movie because like you get
they do
you get the grounding of like that level of kid stakes for the first bit of the movie where it's like we fucked up a tree, we fucked up a sconce, we did like shit parents will be pissed off about, and then it escalates past that into there are demons. And like not even our parents coming home could solve the situation. It's on us to do it with our toy rockets.
A lot of rockets.
Which is a fun little
again,
touch.
like
Chekhov's
I did
rocket.
understand Matt's Matt's fascination with this. It had a little, you know.
Oh, I want
little of
that. I want that knockoff store brand NASA jacket.
What was the rocket called? The main rocket they kept saying?
The Thunderbolt. It's that establishing of the relationship between, because it's the other thing too of I actually looked this up because I was curious, is that the actors playing the brother and sister, so Stephen Dorff was 13 and Krista Denton was only 15 when this movie was made. And it's that age where you're dealing with siblings who are fairly close in age, but then like one of them is starting to enter the next phase of growing up, but the other one's not there yet. So there was this, you established that they used to hang out all the time playing around with these toy rockets, but now she's trying to socialize with friends that are her age. She's going to high school, talking about dating, all that. And so the tension too there between the brother and sister, I think is really well established through, weirdly, the toy rockets.
Yes, and I think it's effective. And I think too, it's like it's a good. You know it's coming because you're watching this as an adult. But like, yeah, that's a setup with like the rockets are going to come into play later, and it's just like I like the smoothness of that, where it's just like A equals B, like it just works.
And the fact of like the rockets and the components of the rockets that save them in the end are the gifts that they were going to give each other for Christmas. Like
exactly,
yeah,
it tracks, and it's just like there's like movies that tie a neater bow, but like that's more than I expected for something from the 80s that like is not sort of like well known. Not a lot of people watch. Like it's good. It's a solid script.
Well,
It really is.
and it's also that thing too where it's like it may not tie itself up in a neat bow plot wise, but it does thematically and emotionally.
Yeah.
Which is
it's
not
very,
for sure.
it very much feels like the resolution of a dream.
Yeah, which is not a thing that we get to see very much anymore.
It's a hard relationship to nail.
Yeah.
A like
Yeah.
adolescent brother and sister, angsty. Like it is not a lot of movies have like knocked that out of the park.
No. Lots of movies have
and this
tried
isn't like,
though. I mean,
yeah, of course.
I mean, we've all seen that Folgers commercial.
With the snowman? No, that's Campbell's.
That's Campbell's.
Not that Folgers.
Everybody now just Google Folgers brother sister commercial and it is
You know the fucking snowman. I'm like, that's
What are you doing?
You're my present this year.
The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
See? I smelled it. He's back.
Ryan, you have to leave.
What? What are you guys talking about? We know what's going on here. We know you're trying to each other.
What? No. Oh, please. Brothers and sisters don't look at each other like that.
He sent you to West Africa for a reason, Ryan.
I found myself down that particular YouTube rabbit hole actually last night, ironically enough, for reasons I don't really fully understand.
Jesus.
We have to wait until Christmas before we talk about that whole thing. And the only thing I want to mention before we get to Peter's rubric is that I know like we've said that the film has a very especially uneven first half, and there's a lot of weirdness to it being really a cohesive story. All of that said, it was successful enough to spawn a sequel. And do you know what movie it opened ahead of in the American box office?
When did it come out?
This was, it's 1987, but it was May 15th, 1987.
Evil Dead 2.
No. It's May, remember.
Is it a Spielberg?
Lethal Weapon.
It opened ahead of this movie.
87.
Give
us a genre.
God, I don't even know if I could give you a genre. It's technically a comedy.
What the fuck does that mean?
3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, and.
These men are pawns.
I put a price of 20,000 dirham on their heads.
Next, they will be hailed as the two messengers of God.
They were just a couple of songwriters who came to Ishtar to break into show business.
Easy boy. What the hell's the matter with him? Is he blind? Well, yeah, he is, but he's...
Matt,
yeah. Okay. Lots of movies opened ahead of Ishtar.
Yeah, what is
movies opening ahead of Ishtar was a pretty popular thing to do.
You said that like it was T2.
Well, but you have to think. But you have to think about it of the fact that it was opening weekend for both of those films, and if you were going into that weekend wondering which one was going to be the more popular one, it's like is it the Dustin Hoffman Warren Beatty film, or is it going to be The Gate, starring Stephen Dorff?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Fair. Yeah,
anyway,
it made like double its budget back.
Yeah. Despite the fact that, like, again, once we get into the effects heavy portion of the movie, are still very solid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Like, everything looks good, holds up good. Great.
Again, I want to reiterate, this is one of those movies where it's like a filmmaker that doesn't know exactly what they're doing manages to make a really interesting film. Precisely because of the gaps in their knowledge and how to make films.
Yeah,
which
and
is a thing that doesn't
it
happen anymore. It happened a bit. It happened quite a bit in the 80s.
Yeah.
And nowadays become like embarrassing, like shot on DV tape.
Yeah.
Like movies you'd never see, but like there was a moment in time where a guy that knew enough about how to make films to put a movie together, bless him.
Yeah.
But not enough to be like, these are the rules of filmmaking. This is how you tell a story in cinema.
Well, it's like good knowledge, but no, like good instincts, but no knowledge.
Yeah.
Is really
I guess that's a way of putting it. Yeah.
It's very much in line with some of these other films. It is very much one that you could throw on mute at a bar.
Yeah.
And it would be a vibe visually.
Oh yeah.
And
I want to just flag too and go on record. I didn't really have a problem with the first half. And usually I hate that shit, but like it flowed well. It opens very dreamlike, very weird, and it's just like immediately is like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah,
like you don't have footing.
The fact that it starts with a dream sequence and sort of sticks with it all the way through, I think, is sort of its superpower.
Yes.
Yeah.
With all of that, Peter, it's time to show us your rubric.
Sorry I'm late. There was trouble at the lab with the running and the exploding and the crying. One of the monkeys stole the glasses off my head. Oh, no, wait, please. No, please, I have a funny story. If you listen, I even wrote theme music. There, listen. Hey.
Listen, rubrics are bullshit. So
what are you?
Let's say I reserve all right to be critical of my own methodology here. Here, I'm going to give you the numbers that I came up with, but I'm also going to tell you how I'm stacking these movies, how I'm actually ranking these movies, because each one like tickles a particular horror bone for me. So for The Gate, again, my weird messed up rubric. Where I do have 2 categories on here that are scary and dread, 1 being the scariest or the dreadest, and 10 being the least scary or least dreadest. So for The Gate, I gave the scary category a 7, the fun category a 6, FX an 8, story a 4, and dread factor an 8. Because they don't give you a ton of things to be like anticipatory about. Like all the scary stuff is just like, boom, it's there.
I'm surprised that it came up that high because I do know you as somebody that feels existential dread fairly intensely. And
that is
this
true.
Definitely does have an existential dread vibe to it.
Right.
Yeah, and for some reason that didn't really hit me that hard. So this does have a total score of 33 out of 50. Mm-hmm. As a reminder, I did alter some of the scores previously. Creepshow now sits at a 30.5. Return of the Living Dead sits at a 35. So The Gate is squarely in the middle at a 33. So here's the thing. Here's how I'd like to sort of talk through these. Creepshow is the scariest, in my opinion. And as such, it is closest, I think, spiritually to the mark that we're trying to get to. Like, what is the scariest thing that I can still tolerate and have fun with? And that would be Creepshow in this case. So, Frank, take a bow. Excellent pick.
Well done.
I had the most fun, though, with Return of the Living Dead. Return of the Living Dead is campy and so just crazy. It's insane that it gets my most fun award, my most likely to return to, probably. And then The Gate hits the vibes award. Like this again, like I was saying, this is the most movie. This is the movie that hits closest to the feeling of being scared as a 12-year-old, which is where all of my nonsense started in the first place. So it very much took me back to that feeling of not wanting to watch this because it was too scary, but now because I'm an adult, I can laugh at it instead of be scared about it. And so all 3 very good picks. But I will say, for the spirit of what we were going after, I'm giving the award to Creepshow.
I'll say, never won one of these contests we've done. This is great.
and
is this how you felt after Scrooge, Connor?
Mm-hmm. I felt more smug after Scrooge, I must say.
No, I
felt even more smug after The Mummy Returns, but way back in the day. But
that was some bullshit.
That was.
I've never felt more betrayed in my life.
That's why I'm surprised that you gave Frank the win, Peter.
Well, it's not political.
Say, I forgive. I forget. I'm a generous God.
I'm flagging this now before we go further because I'm gonna forget. Next year, we're going to do the same thing. Matt, Connor, and I. Let's fucking crush this guy. Let's go let's really try to see where is the floor.
So to wit, we will have had 3 films for Halloween thus far, and we're still a week away from Halloween. Briefly, last week, we discussed watching Event Horizon. Since then, I've heard several other podcasts discussing Event Horizon.
Ugh.
And I feel like this spooky season of the year of our Lord 2023 would not be complete if we do not wrap up the 4th and final week of October without discussing Event Horizon. And last week we sort of discussed leaving Peter out of the conversation.
No, but as the winner.
But I propose that we put the pedal to the metal and watch Event Horizon. Frank and Matt can hash out whether or not Event Horizon is a good movie or not, and Peter can curl up into a ball in the corner of a darkened room.
Great.
So are you suggesting that we are going to watch it together as a commentary, or that we are going to discuss it after the fact?
I hadn't gotten that far in my
I don't think we
thinking.
can do a commentary.
I feel like we can because...
How long's it?
Well, the 3 of us can. Peter needs to have watched it on his own. If we're going to do that's my, if I may.
Yeah.
Peter needs to watch it on his own. Then the 4 of us can do a commentary. It's too weird
so
to do
Peter
a movie
has to
like
watch
this.
it twice?
Yeah, that's not happening.
By himself once?
Yes. No, we can watch it with Jess.
Here's
and his
what
child.
Yeah, that will not happen. She wouldn't watch any of these movies with me.
I just love it's the top of Peter's head in the corner of the frame.
Here's what I will give you. We can do the live commentary, and my commentary is just going to be, oh Christ, oh God, oh fuck. And if you're okay with that, then that's what we can do. If not, then you 3 should just do it without me.
Well, the 3 of us will talk about it. You're going to sign off early, and we're going to figure out what we're going to do. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's
we
fair.
need to really discuss this.
Sure.
Also, we're recording on Prime Day. Event Horizon on 4K. It's only $16
Ooh,
right
there
now.
we go.
The gate